Welcome to VidPMs. If you're under 18, go away. I've got plenty of videos that are safe to watch. This is not one of them. For those of you subscribed, you've likely noticed that I've been gone for a hot minute. I've just been wildly busy with acting, performing work. So, now that I'm back, I can fully focus my efforts on subjecting myself to an incredibly sexually charged high school anime based off an erotic visual novel. I'm getting way too old for this. What am I doing? Developed by Groover, who I assume is Grover's creepy uncle, Green Green is a dating simulator set in rural Japan that follows 11th grade student Yusuke Takahashi and the growing pains, fna, that come with the month-long merger between his all-boys school and an all-girls school. And for those of you who don't know, being in the 11th grade means that he and his peers are all under 18 themselves. So, whoops! I don't even think I can safely watch this anime adaptation for review purposes. Don't worry though, guys, I'm a professional. I've got Alt F4 and a loaded flamethrower prepped and ready in case worst comes to worst. Okay. Well, first things first, you are not allowed to blindside me with a genuinely banging Scar opening. That's like an instant hack to make me love your show. I'm calling foul on that one. Also throwing me for a loop is seeing all of our cast presented in tastefully nude positions, both the boys and the girls, albeit being covered up by more clothing as the intro goes on. Like, I appreciate the equal opportunity skeeziness, but I also think that is the opposite of how the game works. Episode 1 is called
Hearts Pounding Deep in the Mountains,
and is quick to introduce a supernatural reincarnation element to the otherwise very simple proceedings.
Once upon a time, a boy and a girl fell in love. They said fate had brought them together. However, because they lived in ancient times, theirs was a forbidden love.
Ah yes, the ancient times. Back when heterosexuality was considered a sin. To think how far we've come as a people.
I'm just dying to find out what kind of boobs they have! Oh!
Do you have to use your own chest to describe it?
Yusuke's three best friends are the horniest boys alive, particularly Tadatomo here. To the point where I'm almost concerned for their collective well-being. Like, I was a hormonal teenager once, I've been in the trenches, but I still had other things going on in my life. And this nymphomania also extends to at least one of the girls. Can you guess which one? I can only assume the sheer anticipation of boys is enough for her to make a scene, in spite of her ambivalent busmates.
Yeah!
There they are!
Oh, man!
This fucking emo kid be swoosing though! Absolutely off his shits! The girls are naturally thrown off by just how openly lecherous the boys are, which... yeah, that seems about right. But what should be more alarming to everyone involved is this.
What is that?
I have no idea.
Not gonna lie, the spindly silhouette made me think that this was a grey alien, so I'm honestly a little bit disappointed. And concussion upon impact. Oh shit, I actually called it. I like it when my goofs accidentally hit the mark. Even after having their friend knocked out cold, the Bucker crew here, which roughly translates to the Idiot Squad, are too obsessed with the nurse's chest to care that much, eventually being asked to leave so they can go perv on the new arrivals.
Attention, please! As you know, the head of the welcoming committee has been knocked out cold! So as the student president of Kanenone Academy, I'm in charge of the festivities!
Have you ever met someone so deeply and profoundly fucking unpleasant that You just start reflexively crying when they speak. Because that's a new one. I've never seen that before.
Stop crying, goddammit!
Meanwhile, we cut back to Midori, the girl who bamfed in from the goddamn future. And despite her reality warping arrival being in plain goddamn sight, the girl's nurse/supervisor somehow doesn't clock on that Midori isn't supposed to be there.
And you're supposed to be wearing a uniform.
Uniform?
The school requires you to wear it at all times. I have one right here. Change into it.
While their supervisor is clearly a bit dense, Reika, a new character created specifically for this anime adaptation, is 100% clued in to the time-traveling, reincarnation shenanigans taking place, directly confronting Midori about them.
You and Yusuke aren't going to end up together. He's falling in love with someone else.
That's never going to happen!
He didn't even recognize you.
After another aside of watching the dipshit brigade try and fail to exert so much as a teaspoon of Riz, we then see Midori attempt to sexually assault Yusuke, who at this point still has no idea who the hell she even is. He only knows her as the girl who knocked him out. And when he understandably fights her off and restrains her so she'll stop full-body lunging at him, everyone comes in at that point and assumes him to be the aggressor. And yeah, I get that this is an old-as-dirt trope being played for a titillating laugh, but given the wider context and the really uncomfortable social dynamic at play, this just fucking infuriates me. So, sour ending aside, this is exactly what you'd think of when thinking of a sleazy high school anime. There are a few hints of a deeper story buried in there, but only having one down-to-earth protagonist being dragged along for the ride by a crew of unhinged hormonal deviants leaves very little wiggle room for all of that. Case in point, episode 7 is called
Splish-splash by the pool.
which I think explains my point on its own.
Dr. Chigusa, I will gladly apply suntan oil all over your body.
Fuck am I even meant to say to this anymore? That's so overt. It's just... boy be coming at us like Shadow the Hedgehog.
I'll show you the true power of chaos control.
You mean better than sit-ups? I think so.
Just leave me alone.
Did I scare you?
You know, despite being the namesake of this show, Midori being the Japanese word for green, I can't stand Midori. Whether he's her reincarnated lover or not, Yusuke clearly wants her to leave him the fuck alone, and she doesn't even pretend to respect that. Her bubbly personality mixed with the, I'm just gonna call it what it is, stalking, feels way more insidious than the exploits of the moron buddies, who at least get slapstick comeuppance for acting like creeps.
Yusuke isn't any more interested in you.
Oh, I don't know about that. Because I think he looks at me differently than he looks at the other girls.
Ugh. Also, note to self, skim past any changing room scene for your own comfort and safety. And noted. So, adding to the very point I just made, Midori decides to coach the Thicko gang in pickup artistry, which sounds to me like it can only result in unsettling success or hilarious failure. There is very little in the way of middle ground on this one.
The most important thing is to declare your love over and over without any hesitation. As long as you keep repeating those words, your feelings are sure to get through.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay, it's gonna be the latter then. Nice to know that the combined efforts of femcells and incels simply combines their worst traits.
My honey Futaba, my sweet peach honey, nice body, dynamite body, milky body, wonderful body.
Earlier in this episode, Futaba called the imbecile collective dorks, and I decided against making an Ed, Ed and Eddie reference. But as this episode continues, it really does feel like an alternate universe where the Ed boys chase skirts instead of jawbreakers. After Midori deems them hopeless and gives up on them, the division decide to better understand girls by cross-dressing and experimenting with one another. And I should not be watching this. How these young men find themselves is none of my goddamn business. I am in my fucking 30s. This moment of clarity actually gave me a moment to stop and ask myself, who is this show actually for? And I do just mean the show, I'm not touching the game as previously discussed. But for the show itself, I'd like to give it the benefit of the doubt that it isn't just created to satiate creepy adults. Mainly because it's actually funny sometimes. And, you know, the English dub is really well done, like, love and craft was put into this. This show plays the desperation and hypersexuality as a constant running gag, and usually, it won't go anywhere with it. The guys will get the shit kicked out of them and then get told to fuck off. Ultimately, the vibe feels like that of a teen sex comedy, like An American Pie, albeit a lot more extreme. And the few times it has shown nudity, it's always done so with this tone of, "Oh my gosh, how scandalous! What unfortunate scenario did we get ourselves in this time?" And honestly, I just found myself asking, repeatedly, who could I possibly recommend this to who isn't on the sex offenders registry? But then it hit me. I immediately got it. This is a show that would be most beloved by teenagers, who would almost certainly be watching it when they know they're not supposed to be. And while the creators certainly wouldn't admit that, I personally would have loved this if I found it at the age of 14 off some dodgy Russian streaming site. Wait, the only people who would enjoy this show are the people I told to fuck off at the beginning. And if they didn't, if you are a minor watching this, point still stands, fuck off. Well, for those of you who are still here, we've made it this far, so wacky shenanigans, heart-to-heart talk, let's move on. The final episode, big finger quotes there, I'll explain why later, is episode 12.
Farewell, Kanenone Academy!
By this point in the series, Yusuke is inundated with memories from his past life with Midori, which actually leaves him even more conflicted around her, forcing him to confront feelings of love and loss that previously weren't there.
That would cheat destiny!
Why don't you just shut up?
This leads to some tension when the final day of the merger comes around, which is very quickly diffused by the single most repulsive crying animation I have ever had the misfortune of seeing. Why does it look like that?
Ijun, what's the matter? Why are you crying?
It's like crude oil. I'm surprised the US military hasn't declared war on their tear ducts.
We were blinded by the thought of you, Kana!
I am mentally preparing for an eldritch horror to crawl out of them, then crawl out of my screen, and then strangle me to death. After stepping away for one more conversation, Yusuke and Midori decide to finally break it off completely, which... yeah, you know what? Good. I'm happy my guy stood his ground. I know that the source material is a dating sim, so chances are you would have gotten to choose Midori herself, or Angry Girl, or Cactus Girl, or Sick Girl, or the other one, but ultimately, I'm glad that this is the route they chose for the show. Midori runs off heartbroken, and Yusuke chases her to make sure she doesn't do anything rash. However, he himself then ends up falling from a cliff face, being critically injured.
Yusuke?
That's 3 for 3 now. I've never seen a main character so prone to unconsciousness and brain injuries. What the actual fuck? Yusuke is left bedbound, unable to receive serious medical care due to the hazardous weather conditions. So Midori decides to give up her time-traveling life energy, saving the boy she loves. Okay. That is a fine act of redemption. Maybe the character's not all bad. I'll give you that one, Midori.
Why the hell didn't you stop her?
We tried, but the only thing on her mind was saving you.
Reika, who turns out to be an agent of the
Time Police,
returns the barely surviving Midori back to the 31st century where she belongs, allowing her just one reciprocated kiss with Yusuke before leaving forever.
What's this? What is it? Who's this girl?
I've never seen her before.
And that was Green Green. I think I might start a VidPMs exclusive segment where I stop and I listen to the voices of the people. And by people, I mean the commenters on the hentai websites where I find these episodes. Because everyone's favourite Metal Gear Solid character, Otacon, had this to say.
This is not porno-normal anime.
And for the most part, Dr. Emmerich is completely right. This show, much like several others based off of pornographic PC games, will play with the idea of sex and will be as openly perverted as they come, but will often shy away from nips, genitals, and on-screen hanky-panky, keeping more in line with their neutered console releases. In fact, I even ummed and ahed about making this a regular VidAMs episode like I did with Nico Para, but I decided against that for one huge reason. No, not him. Well, actually, yes, him. And also the nipples, but... You see, there's a final 13th episode named Green Green Evolutions, not to be confused with Green Green Evolutions, which is what you've been listening to throughout this entire video. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. It dives from the springboard of plausibly deniable fan service into a pool of straight-up porn, featuring youngsters. I love you guys, but I'm not watching unlicensed, illegal content. That seems ever so slightly ill-advised, you know? So with that, I am more than ready to close the page on this one. Thank you all for powering through that with me, and a bigger thank you to the patrons who helped to enable this. Those being Anonymous, Dan Brown, Fitzwilliam Ramsbottom, Neve Calderwood, Pixel Pusher, Ravi Poodle, Shameboy, Svideotech, Thomas Walker, and Toon Pirate. See y'all soon.